There's one thing we need to get straight before we start this story, and that is the fact that being incorrect is a major part of fly fishing. Getting our butts kicked out on the water and being totally humbled in the process is nothing new, nor does it ever go away. But the thought of being okay with that just doesn't sit right. Being wrong has such a negative feel to it. But is being inaccurate at times always such a bad thing? Take, for example, damselflies, a fairly predictable stillwater hatch that lasts most of the warmer months each year. Having fished this hatch dozens of times for years, I thought that I had experienced all that a damselfly hatch has to offer. But once again, it turns out I was wrong. Way wrong. Only this time, I was completely okay with that. When asked my favorite color, there's no doubt it's blue. But not just any shade of blue, it's damselfly blue. Throughout the summer months on almost any body of standing water, you can find damselflies. But first, let's clarify a few things. These are not the same as dragonflies, and no, they don't grow up to become dragonflies. Damselfly adults have wings that lay along their backs instead of outward like dragonflies. As with most aquatic insects, they live out the majority of their lives under the water's surface as nymphs. However, the capstone of their existence occurs when they hatch into adults each summer with splendid wings that carry them along for the duration of their existence. And in my opinion, they are one of the most fascinating insects to be found. Each year, damselflies hatch, and each year I make it a point to chase fish around this event. But we'll get more into that later. The same way that every hatch is different, so is every species of fish. Take, for example, the tiger trout. This is one of the baddest fish in the salmon community. By combining two of my favorite species, brown trout and brook trout, you end up with a sterile hatchery mutant that instead of looking to reproduce when mature, they focus mainly on devouring everything in their path and growing as large as possible. Their entire life mission is to eat, grow, survive, and dominate. Their brown trout hues mixed with vermiculations of a brook trout make for a gorgeous specimen. Combine that with their voracious tendencies to feed, and they are an awesome fish to chase. For the past 4 or 5 years, I've heard from numerous accounts of a high mountain lake that holds a decent population of tigers and is also home to a fantastic damselfly hatch. As a filmmaker, I've been able to film a handful of damselfly hatch events that yielded some pretty cool results. For example, shots of fish leaping way out of the water to chase flying damsels. It's a super cool hunting tactic that I've seen browns and rainbows do. But would tigers behave the same way? This question had been burning in the back of my mind for a while, and was worth finding an answer to. High in the mountains, my buddy Nic met up with me to both fish and film what we hoped would be a decent day on the water. Our expectations weren't too high, since we both know that fishtails have a tendency of growing in magnitude as they get passed around. But being optimistic, we were hopeful at least a few decent fish would be brought to hand, and with any luck, we might be able to capture a handful of shots worth sharing. And so our day began. It was late morning when the damselfly nymphs began to crawl out of the water onto the surrounding rocks and vegetation. Birds and other predators were keying in on this event and taking advantage of the helpless nymphs stranded on dry ground, still unable to take flight. Back in the water, their exodus continued, and for both us and the fish, that's when the hunting began. The tigers were cruising the shallows, searching out nymphs, crawling and swimming towards the water's edge. Some patrolled the shallow edges, picking them off aggressively one by one. We began to find a few fish by throwing damsel nymphs subsurface, but it almost seemed like the majority of the tigers were waiting for more. Waiting for something they were privy to, but we were unaware of. They knew a secret, and we would have to be patient and let it unfold. Back on land, at this point, hundreds of nymphs were finding sanctuary among the grass and rocks, where they were hatching into their winged adult forms. A short time later, after drying their wings, one by one they were able to take flight. And what first seemed like few soon turned to many as the hatch progressed and started to pick up steam. Of all the damselfly hatches I've experienced, none were even in the same realm as what we were seeing. But keep in mind, as filmmakers and fly fishermen, we weren't there just to catch fish, but to capture what we hoped would be an acrobatic show of aerial hunting. As the hatch really started to get good, our question still remained. Would tigers go airborne like other salmonids, or would they stick strictly to ambushing and chasing damsels closer to the surface? As the hatch faded away and the acrobatic aerials diminished, the fish switched their technique and began sipping spent damsels on the surface. That's when I realized once again that it's not what we know about fly fishing that is most exciting, but what we don't know that really drives us. And being wrong doesn't always have to be a bad thing. And although increasing in knowledge and experience by getting out as much as possible can help us be more proficient as anglers, allowing ourselves to still be surprised might even be more important, because you never know when a good hatch will turn to great or even epic.